All right, what we're working with today is congruent polygons. Remember that congruent means that they're the same shape. We worked a lot with congruent polygons when we were dealing with transformations and things that were rigid. And so this should not be that difficult of a transition. So when we have corresponding parts, whenever we have congruent triangles, or congruent shapes, we have sides that are congruent and angles that are congruent. And what corresponding means is things that are in the same position and are congruent. So we need to list our corresponding sides. So my first side is MN, and that is congruent to one tick mark on the other side, YZ. My second one I have has two tick marks, NO, and that is congruent to the other one that has two tick marks, which is WZ. The third one has three tick marks, PO, and that's congruent to the other one with three, which is WX. And then the next one and the last one is XY, and that's congruent to MP. If you notice, I switched this last one up on opposite sides, and I kind of did that on purpose because it doesn't matter if it's on the left or right. It doesn't matter if it's NO or ON. It's still going to work as long as you have them paired up together. On the other side, the congruent angles, I have congruent angle M is congruent to angle Y because those both have one arcs. And then angle N is congruent to angle Z. Angle O is congruent to angle W. And then angle P is congruent to angle X. The last thing that could happen is you could have to write something called a congruency statement. And a congruency statement writes the shapes in order. And so I'm going to have, this is polygon, so I'm just going to name this top one up here, NOPM is congruent to, if it was a triangle, I would write my triangle shape in front, but it's not a triangle, so I'm going to stick with this. Now, I need to have whatever's in the same place as N has to come first. And N is the same as Z. And then O, so it has to be W. And then came P, so it has to be X. And then came M, so it has to be Y. So you could put them in all different orders as long as N is in the same position as the Z, O is in the same position as the W, P is in the same position as X, and the M is in the same position as Y. All right, so let's actually do some down below where we're going to write our congruency statement. I started off with the first one by giving you the letters, and then you had to fill them in. So angle A has one arc, so it has to be in the same place as D. B has two, so it's E. And then C is the same as F. Okay, the last one, if you notice, I know that I have AC in both of them. You see how it's in both sides? So if it's 5 in one side, it's 5 in the other, so it's the same. So I'm going to call this first triangle. I'm going to highlight this first triangle up top. Where's it? That was my highlighter. There it is. I'm going to put that one first, and you don't have to put that one first. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to put that one first, and I'm going to call that BCA. So if you notice, B is between the 1 tick mark and the 2 tick marks. So between 1 and 2 down here has to be D. C for this one is between the 2 and the 3. And so between the 2 and the 3 down here is A. And then the last one, A, has to be the same as C. Okay? All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to use this information to find some answers. Now, if you notice, it says D is congruent to L. So if I want, I can make arcs. I know that D, oops, that's in a bad spot. D is the same as L. And then I know that E has to be the same as M. So E is the same as M. And then F has to be the same as N. And then that leaves the last one, G is the same as P. So this one's been, I think, flipped and turned, so it's hard to see. But it's helpful if you make marks on it, so then you know what's kind of in the same spot. Now, one thing I need you guys to notice is there's equal sign and then there's congruent signs. Congruent sign are shapes. So you can say congruent to a segment. You can say congruent to an angle. If you have an equal sign, these are numbers. So you can have equal a number. So you can either have equal shapes or equal numbers. So if you have an equal sign, must be number. If you have a congruent sign, it must be a shape. So if you notice for number 3, it says the measure of angle L. Well, L is right here with one arc. So it's the same as one arc over here. So L is 62. For number 4, it says DE. I'm going to switch colors because I already wrote some. DE is my first and second. And it's congruent, so it has to be letters. And that's the same as my first and second here. So it's the same as LM. You also could have said DE was right here between 1 and 2. And LM is right here between 1 and 2. And then this one, angle E is congruent. So E is congruent to 2, so it's congruent to angle M because they're in the same spot. Now this is listing the polygons in order, so I need to know what has to be in the same spot as M. And the same spot as M is E. The same spot as N is F. The same spot as P is G. And the same spot as L is D. And so that's the order it has to go in. All right, the measure of angle F. Well, the measure of angle F has 3 arcs, just like this one here does. So F is 88. Now to solve for X, we need to see what X is. Here's X right here. It says 2X minus 3. Well, F is on G to F. So it's the same as N to P. And N to P is right here. So since those are in the same position, those two things have to be equal. So I'm going to set my equation 2x minus 3 equals 15. Add 3 on both sides. So 2x is 18. Divide by 2. So x is 9. So sometimes you can see on the shape that things are equal. If you can't, then you need to look at this congruency statement, and that will help you see what goes where. Remember, if it says congruent, congruent is shapes. If it says equal, it's a number.